Father Joseph, are you? I'm so used to asking if you're at least 18. You're at least 18. Um,
I hope so.
so you earned those gray whiskers. So I'm not going to take that from you. And are you a believer in some kind of a God?
I'm an Orthodox Christian.
Cool. And do you think that the biblical God is all good, partly good, or some mixture?
No, I believe he's all good.
Okay, cool. Do you think that God has ever done anything that is not good?
No.
Okay, cool. Do you think that, let's say, like children, like, do you think children should be punished for, I don't know, like making fun of somebody by death?
Um, Depends on the circumstances.
Can you elaborate?
Yeah. I think that, for example, children making fun of, say, God in his presence, to cause consternation among the public. I think if a child does that, it's horrific and kind of not the most realistic thing. But yeah, one could imagine circumstances mocking the dead in their presence. I mean, there are things where children would naturally not do that, but perhaps a child under the inspiration of the demons can.
Sure. Then it would be okay to have the children executed.
Well, if they were like seriously causing psychological damage among the community or something like that, or yeah,
Children?
I think if they're hurting people, kids can unfortunately. Well, I of course we should treat children good as they are, in a positive sense. But I mean, we can't deny the fact that even 5-year-olds have shot other people. I mean, like the potential for evil is still there among in a child. It's just usually it has to be inculcated. Um, I mean, I hate to say it, but moral perversion, for example, that can be caused through abuse. So, the fact that you just generically say children, it's not a cover.
If a group of junior high students make fun of a pastor for
Hmm.
being bald, would it be okay to execute them?
Um, I don't know. I don't know the circumstance.
You don't know.
No, I mean, we're asking these things in a way that's emotionally slanted, but in reality, there can be situations where that can happen.
Well, let's say that the pastor was like really emotionally hurt. Like he thought the kids were going to like him, and it turns out they're making fun of him because he's bald. Is it okay to kill him?
Um, don't know. I mean, what we're gonna have to have more certain. Like, I know that this is most likely some sort of reference to a religious text. So I mean, it's kind of I'm too. You notice I'm pretty old. I'm kind of past that gotcha thing.
Well, it's not a gotcha. I'm just kind of
It's a
curious.
gotcha.
The reason why I ask like these hypothetical questions is because if I don't ask the hypotheticals first, then Christians will turn around and walk all over themselves and change their minds about things that are, clearly er, ridiculous. So it sounds to me though like you're not going to do that because you're doubling down. You're saying no, no, no. It actually is okay to kill
Oh
children.
yeah, absolutely. There's because one thing I've learned over time in debating with people is that in general most gotcha questions are emotionally derived, so they're for the audience to evoke shock.
Mhm.
And so I'll roll right in. I said it's an all good God and I'm serious about it.
Cool. So then what about babies? Is it okay to like execute babies?
Not under most circumstances, of course not, but it
Is
is. You notice I don't make it universal.
is there a circumstance where it is okay to execute babies?
Well, if you're talking about the children of Amalek, for example, like in that case,
Nah,
the entire society was so warped it had to be wiped out.
that wasn't what I was referring to.
Sure, but
But
it's an example.
you're saying there is scenarios. Okay, so if a society
I'm.
is truly evil, it's okay to annihilate them, to commit the
Can
genocide.
I ask? Was Hiroshima justified?
No,
You don't think so?
no, I don't think anyone should be dropping atom bombs on anyone else ever.
Okay, well that's good. At least you're consistent. I mean, they did that because they wanted a quick end to the war, and there's obviously other reasons. But certainly, in a purely human standpoint, governments have made that decision, sometimes to great effect.
Yeah, and I would
I'm not saying it's
obviously
right.
Yeah, obviously I would disagree with those governments, and that's my position. Okay. So then, what about the Egyptian babies? It was okay that they all died,
Well, I mean,
the
yeah,
firstborn.
if God decreed it, I would say that he had reasons. I mean, in many cases, forensically, we don't know what those reasons are. There could be a number of cases. There have been cases in history where a future generation of an enslaved community takes over violently as revenge for the first set of killings because the kids were allowed to live. I'm not saying that's a good way to do things, but I am saying that repercussions can happen if you don't go with total death. That's what that's part of, I would say, even basic war strategy at this point historically. Like the fact that you could say God did it, therefore he's not good, but it is, if it in fact is a legitimate war strategy, one might ask perhaps whether God was simply using a strategy that worked
Well,
and that we've seen proven to work.
is God capable of doing it without killing the babies?
Well, again, this is the automaton question, whether God can force people to do good. Of
No,
course he could.
that wasn't my question.
Yeah, but it's part of the question because you're
My
saying,
question
of
is,
course God,
can he accomplish what he wants to accomplish without killing all the babies?
not within the paradigm that has been created. No,
Okay, so then he's not all powerful.
it's not an issue of all powerful. It's an
Well, it
issue of
seems to
whether
be.
he should break his own rules.
What
If he gives us free will and it's our job to do the right thing,
he breaks people's
then
free will
it's
all the time.
explain.
Have you not read the Exodus when he hardens Pharaoh's heart like 6 different occasions?
Well, Pharaoh's heart was already capable of being hardened because he was outside of the grace of God.
Is hardening somebody's heart a manipulation of someone's free will?
Not necessarily.
Then what is it?
Well, it can be a push in a direction. God does push both good.
Could God soften
People.
someone's heart?
God, has he softened someone's heart?
I'm asking you, could he?
Well, I mean, but the text, I would say almost probably better than I do. So we know that God can soften and harden hearts.
Okay, is that a violation of free will?
I don't think so, because if a person really wants to, they can change.
Well, there you go. So then God could soften the hearts of people without killing the babies and get to the end goal.
Well, you don't know that. We don't know what the actual historical circumstance was where that was done.
Well, if the answer is no, then God's just not all powerful.
No,
It's just
you're
it's just
assuming that
just
God's
a
not all
definitional
powerful.
argument. This is how definitions work.
Well, the problem is that free will allows us to do things that are not God's will. And so the point is, while God may influence us in one way or another, in general, he does not. I think that to me is standard Christian orthodoxy. I'm not exactly sure where that. Well, I guess if you're
Well, Jesus says that nobody comes to the Father, or no one comes to me unless already drawn by the Father.
Yes, and he also says no one comes to the Father except through me. So
Right.
it works both ways.
Right. No, but my point is that people who come to the Father come because God draws them.
Yeah.
Is that a manipulation of free will?
I don't think so. That's a call and people answer it.
Right. But again, they don't come unless God draws them.
Well, I would say to that God is continually drawing people. He wills all men to be saved. I believe you've read that before. But not all men listen. That's just a consequence of free will.
Sure.
Just
he's not to Paul. Paul disagrees in Romans chapter 9.
Paul got a violent conversion. I respect that. I got a violent conversion. There are few people who literally God kind of had a slap.
Yeah, God knocked Paul off the horse, made him bump his head, the whole 9 yards.
Made him go blind. Yeah.
Yeah, was that a violation of free will?
I think that St. Paul was such a hardened Pharisee. If you remember, he was witnessing executions and was okay with it, and thinking it was great, that God had to be a bit direct to him.
So God can violate people's free wills.
I think that he knows whose free will he needs to mess with and who will benefit from it.
Yeah, but you said he can't violate his own rules.
Well, I said he wouldn't violate his own rules.
Okay, so sometimes he does violate his own rules.
Yeah, that's what miracles are for.
Okay, so God can violate the rules. Okay, so then what prevents God from violating the rules to bring about the goals that he wants without killing all the babies?
Maybe he thought that they were. Maybe he realized that these people had become so deranged and degenerate that it would have been too much psychological strain on the rest of the world population. I have no idea.
To let the Egyptian babies live?
Yeah, like maybe they were just really horrible babies.
But he left the Egyptians. The Egyptians are still there, and he only killed the firstborn. He didn't kill the secondborn, the thirdborn, or the fourthborn.
Well, but those would be different. I mean, I would guess those
Different.
are still somewhat, different Egyptians.
They're
Yeah,
like
if,
the
well, if
firstborn
they're
and the
the same,
secondborn are sometimes only a year apart.
okay, so basically, in that case, I mean, it may have just been a matter of scrambling property rights. I'm not
Yeah,
sure. I'd have
yeah,
to
it
look
is.
at it again.
Yeah, certainly a matter of proper rights. I agree with you. Do you think there's
Now,
ever?
it'll mess up the property rights pretty good.
Yeah,
So,
think there's ever a scenario where like a man's wife should be sexually assaulted as a punishment
by her husband or something,
by
her husband.
we'll say it, an intruder. So like for
Okay.
example, if I do something bad, is it ever okay to punish me by having my wife sexually assaulted?
No, I just heard that one, and I don't. It doesn't follow.
Okay, that should
That
never
was
happen
on.
then.
In theory, it shouldn't. Now there is the question of war, and I don't like this fact, but it is still a fact of reality that many times um, people who have killed a husband in war will take the wife as booty. Unfortunately, that has happened since time began. If that's what you're referring to, but if you're
Well,
referring to like
it shouldn't happen in war either, right?
it's war,
But
like
the question is should, not does. I'm saying should it happen in
yeah,
war?
we should be honorable with women in war, absolutely, but
Okay.
that
Should God be
doesn't.
honorable with women in war?
God's not involved.
Oh,
He's
he certainly is involved. All the wars in the Old Testament, God says, I will deliver them into your hand.
right, but that's not you. I mean, people on the ground.
Yeah, I agree. God says, I'm going to deliver them into your hands. He says, I go out and fight in front of you.
Yeah, but he did not physically turn into a person and fight.
Yeah, he
Like he
did.
didn't incarnate himself. No, I don't think he did.
Yeah, the angel of the
He
Lord,
appeared as a,
the angel of the Lord manifests and killed like 200,000 people.
and I would assume that the angel of the Lord manifesting and killing 2,000 people wouldn't look like a person.
Well, I
Like
mean,
he's
the
not.
angel of the
He's
Lord is
operating.
described as looking like a person in the Old Testament. It's kind of irrelevant. Like if you believe that God is
He's
sending
described a few
the
different
angel
ways.
of the Lord to descend and fight on behalf of the Israelites, it's essentially the same thing. Like God can just send his emissary and bada bing, bada boom.
Sure.
So no one has to get graped.
Well, I don't know.
Okay. So let me tell you a story
because
though.
here's a. But here, let me. I'm gonna raise you up one card there because this God is all knowing, correct?
Well, it depends on what part of the Bible you read. In Genesis, he's
No,
clearly
no, no, no.
not.
Good.
In Deuteronomy, he's
He's
not either.
okay. No, I'm not talking about your reading of the Old Testament.
No,
The general Old Testament
it's
and New
just
Testament
absolutely
belief is
true.
that God is. Okay, so you're saying God was never all knowing.
No, I'm saying that it depends on what part of the Bible you read. It clearly in Genesis and
Okay,
Deuteronomy,
I'm
there
gonna.
are things that he doesn't know and he has to
Let's
find
try this.
out. And he tells you, I
Let's
have to
try.
find out.
Let's try this a different way. Is it standard Jewish and Christian belief that God is all knowing?
For Christians and most Jews, but not all Jews.
Okay, well, I don't care about atheist Jews, or the freaky ones that believe in 12 gods or anything like that. The point is, it's a standard Jewish and Christian belief that God is all knowing.
But that wasn't your question.
Yes.
The question was, what is it? If God was all knowing, and I said according to the text.
Right.
I didn't say.
Right, but I never.
I don't.
Finished
I don't really care what
because,
people believe. It doesn't matter to me what people believe.
Well, then why would anyone take your statements as relevant
Well,
either?
because what Christians and Jewish people believe about the text doesn't change what the text says. My belief
but I'm
about the text is independent of what you believe about it.
That's fine. But my point in bringing that up is that such a belief could, in theory, assume things like future bloodlines, future genetics that God would be aware of that humans are not.
Right? Yeah. You have to assert
but
that
now
into
you don't
the
have,
text.
right. But well, if you believe in an all-knowing God, it's assumed.
Oh,
But
I
the
agree.
point
If you
is-
believe in that, yeah.
Right, but if you want to say there's 5 different ways in the Old Testament where I think I can prove God's a schmuck, you could do that too. But no one will care. The
Well,
point is
they
that an
certainly do
all-knowing God
care.
he may have a justification that may not be immediately visible.
Right. Okay. So give me the justification for 2 Samuel chapter 12 when David is punished by Nathan the prophet for what he did with Bathsheba, right? Remember the story?
Yeah, that's the basis of Psalm 50. David repents. Psalm 51 in your book.
Okay. So it says as part of the punishment in verse 11, I will raise up trouble against you from within your own house, and I will take your wives before your eyes and give them to your neighbor, and he shall lie with your wives in broad daylight. For you did it secretly, but I will do this thing before all Israel in broad daylight. And I assume you think that was a befitting punishment for the women to be sexually assaulted?
Well, again, and once again, when we're talking about pre, even slightly post-Christian societies, women were often seen as property, but more importantly, they accepted their role as that. So they would have been much more passive at the idea of being just taken away. As to whether that's a befitting punishment for the prophet David, obviously that's what God said.
Is it a just punishment?
I mean, he did that to some guy and had him killed. So yeah, I mean, I think it's kind of fair that he had his wives taken away.
Okay,
Seems
it
kind of fair, right?
So it is fair that 10 of David's wives got raped.
Well, we don't. They got they got used or married off, etc.
They didn't get married off.
Okay, can you demonstrate that from the text that they were all killed?
They weren't killed. They were put into a separate location after they were raped. So in chapter 16, Absalom storms the palace and comes in under the advice of Ahithophel and assaults the women.
What's the chapter verse here?
We're in 2 Samuel 16. The advice of Ahithophel. So when Absalom tries to take over the throne and he chases his father out of Jerusalem, as a display of force over his father, now that he's in the palace, he asks Ahithophel, what should we do? Right? And it says, Ahithophel said to Absalom, go into your father's concubines, the ones he has left to look after the house, and all Israel will hear that you have made yourself odious to your father, and the hands of all who are with you will be strengthened. So they pitched a tent for Absalom upon the roof, and Absalom went into his father's concubines in the sight of all Israel. So,
well, you said wives earlier, so these were concubines, right?
Concubines are wives.
Not exactly.
They are according to Exodus 21.
They're higher status sex slaves.
You're making it worse, not better.
No, I mean you're the one who used the shocker claim that people taking wives, but the truth is they were concubines. That was what
doesn't matter what you call them. What happened to them was unjustified.
Okay, so let me see if I understand correctly. Because David had actually stolen someone's wife, Absalom violating his sex servants, if we shall, who that was their job. Like, it's. I mean, I'm sorry to say this.
So if you're a concubine, you're not allowed to have autonomy over who you sleep with.
I don't think any women thought they had autonomy at that time. No.
I'm asking, in reality, should they have autonomy? Should they be allowed to say who they sleep with and who they don't?
What you mean by in reality is in our modern era, and I'm saying that is not our modern era.
I didn't say it was. I'm asking you.
Yes, you're calling it reality, but you're not talking about the fact that it's 2,500 years ago.
In real life, in the life that we all live in, should it be?
That's the modern era.
Should it be the case in all eras that women should have a say over who they sleep with?
You cannot do an absolute over history.
Yes, I can. I'm asking should women in all time periods be allowed to say who sleeps with them?
Okay, and you want to apply universal across all eras, correct?
Yeah, this is easy. This should be a knockout for you. All you have to say is yes.
What's the yes?
I'm just waiting for a yes that women should have autonomy over their bodies in all time periods.
That's historically untrue.
I know it's untrue. I'm asking about should. I'm not asking about if it actually happened.
Why are we doing ought questions over history?
Because the ought question is important when we're talking about the morals of the God who is timeless.
Ah, I get it now. Okay,
I don't
so
think you do get it.
yeah, I kind of do. Like, autonomy didn't exist 2,500 years ago, therefore, God bad, right?
Well, God is the one that caused it to be that way, according to the book.
You're
So the question
that's
is
assumed.
whether or
Wait, so
not
you're
whether or not it's ever
concubinage did
whether or not it's ever
concubinage.
just for God to punish 10 of David's concubines for having them sexually assaulted. Should that ever be considered a just punishment?
Let me see if I understand correctly. There is an assumption here that concubinage was not common among all societies at the time.
That's not my assumption whatsoever.
But if you include that assumption, then that is on the table for God.
That's not my assumption. My assumption is
But that's
that all
historically
women
correct.
that all women should have autonomy over who sleeps with them. There should never
And
be a
that's but
time
that's not
period
history.
in any point of history. I know it's not history. That's the problem. Your God is supposedly ahistorical. He existed at all points in time. He should have known in the Bronze Age and in the Iron Age that you shouldn't punish women by having them raped for crimes their husband did.
Well, again, I do not know what would be the post effects, etc., in terms of uh potential pregnancies, future children. It's too broad of a question to answer.
It's not a broad
Now,
question.
I
So
I, I
just
think
so
it is.
we're
I
just so
realize
we're clear,
I
you
just
think it's okay that God had 10 of David's concubines sexually assaulted?
I'd say it was visibly fair punishment. I don't know if those
Fair
concubines were
punishment.
free.
Wow, this guy.
Well,
Do you
I
have
get it.
do you have
I'm
daughters,
watching
Father
your
Joseph?
chat. I'm
Do you have
watching your chat.
daughters?
Yeah, I do. I do.
Oh, what would happen if somebody did this to one of your daughters?
None of this would happen in the modern
It's a
Christian state, the society
hypothetical. Would
Christians
you be upset if it
created.
did?
Well, of course I'd be upset if it did.
Why?
That's kind of it's kind of a self.
It's not. Why? Why would you
Yeah,
be
it is
upset?
because I wouldn't want my daughters to be hurt.
Because it's unjust, right?
Um, well, yeah, I'm assuming they were innocent and
Yeah.
that
Is
everyone
it
in this
ever
situation
just to
was
punish
innocent.
innocent women for crimes they didn't commit?
Again, we're not talking about an autonomous society. You're trying to create absolutes out of
No,
the past.
you're right. Yes, because justice has a firm definition. Justice is the idea that the people who commit the crime receive the punishment, and the people who don't commit crimes don't receive punishment. So the idea of justice is timeless. It doesn't matter what time period you live in. So all you're saying is that you're okay with the God of the Bronze Age being unjust. That's what you're saying.
Well, what I'm saying is I do not, once again, understand the mind of God nor the circumstances.
Yeah.
However, we don't also do we know what happened to the concubines afterwards?
Yep.
What happened?
They were placed in a separate home because they were defiled and they lived out the rest of their days in solitude.
Okay.
Chapter
Well, maybe
20.
that was better. Maybe that was better than living under David.
I don't know if it was better. The question is whether or not they
You
should
don't
have been
know.
sexually
You don't
assaulted.
know. That's my point. Not you're focusing on
The
tiny
question
things
is
to
whether
try
or
to.
not they should be sexually assaulted.
I didn't.
If
First
God
off, no.
if God merely wanted to put them into a safe house, he could have done that without having them raped.
Once again, we're placing moral judgments
Yeah.
on a situation where we were not present.
Father Joseph, are you credentialed? Are you like a real priest?
I am a real ordained priest. I don't understand what the relevance that has, but sure, you want to call me Joseph, you can.
I mean, your name says Father Joseph.
No, but you can call me Joseph. You don't respect that. I mean, you were a pastor, right? I'm not calling you ex-pastor Doug or anything.
I'm just saying
We're not.
it's in your title. I'm just using what's in your title. Okay.
Would you like me to change it?
No. So you're a Greek Orthodox. Did I hear you Greek Orthodox pastor?
Or
Priest?
Orthodox Christian, sure, yeah. What's the point of that? I see your chat. They're calling me all sorts of names, and it's fine. I'm
Yeah.
really okay with that.
What's the name of your church?
Why?
Just curious. They might want to see this video.
Well, they can. What do you mean if they might want to see what video?
You're a defender of the faith. They should see this video watching
This
you
is
defend the
going on.
faith.
This is going on my channel. You
Oh,
think I'm actually ashamed of my arguments?
you should be ashamed of your argument.
No,
yeah.
Why?
You should be. You should be losing sleep over this. Actually,
I am actually not losing.
Great.
Not,
so then what's the name of your church?
I'm not losing sleep.
What's the name of it?
Well, yeah, I don't want your fans to come after me.
They're not going to come after you.
I don't know that. I don't know what kind of crate. Once you're
so you don't want him to. So you don't want him to see this then.
No, I'm putting it on my channel, but the way these people are talking in your chat, dude, I don't know what kind of crazies you got.
What's the name of your channel?
NFTU.
The name of your channel is NFTU?
Yeah, it stands for Notes from the Underground. It's the same as the name of my blog.
Okay, so the name of your YouTube channel is Notes from the Underground. Guys, make sure you mark that down.
NFTU. It's NFTU, True Orthodox News and Apologetics.
Fair enough. Guys, make sure you track down this guy's YouTube channel. We'll catch up with him later and make sure we take care of business. Anyways, listen, Father Joseph, I had
the way you said that.
I had a delightful time talking to you and letting you tell me how despicable of a human being you are and how you actually don't think
that's great. That's awesome.
How you don't think that women should have autonomy over their bodies and it's okay to kill babies, different things like that. It's really eye-opening for everyone here. And trust me, we'll probably find a way to make sure that your church sees this video. So just, most likely going to be the case. Well, there's a POS FF for you guys. Look at that. The serpent frame says effing Sun Tzu over here. Thanks for the super chat. Also, Logan, thank you for the 1999 super chat. Big W Logan says Christians out here defending God, punishing like the mafia or cartels would as a good thing. It's crazy to me that somebody will get on a live stream and defend that kind of nonsense. That's unfucking believable. And he is an ordained priest. He's an ordained priest. Guy has followers. There's people in his church.